Cool. All right. We are delighted to be joined by former Ospreys, Dragons, recently Wales, and now tearing up trees at Grenoble fly half, Sam Davies. Sam, welcome to the Let me do that again. I can't even fucking speak. We're delighted. We're delighted to be joined by former Ospreys, Dragons, Wales, and now tearing up trees at Grenoble fly half, Sam Davies. Sam, welcome to the Rosbiff Rugby podcast. How you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. It's great to be here and looking forward to the pod.
You're looking very
Excellent.
relaxed, I have to say.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is you missed because you the timekeeping thing. Obviously, you missed the first part. But I said I've been training all day, so I had to get in the bedroom where the phone charger lead is just to get it in plugged in because yeah, the phone was running low on juice, and obviously I got this call, so yeah, I'm relaxed. It's the best way to be, right, for a pod.
Definitely,
Abs-
yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, we were just saying, so a few sort of French style St. David's Day celebrations, but you're fresh off another wicked win at home against Beziers on Friday. Pretty satisfied with how that went, I assume.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're satisfied with the first half. I think is probably the best way to put it. I mean, we're well aware Bezier made a lot of changes to their team, so it was always going to be, a case of making sure we stuck to our kind of our game plan, didn't get carried away, didn't kind of think. Sorry, may look relaxed, but I got something stuck in my throat. All right, okay. Um, And yeah, like I was saying, just in terms of the amount of changes Bezier made, we needed to make sure that we stuck by our game plan and played it like a proper game. And the first half was good, going in 31-0. But a red card after maybe 50 minutes kind of shook the game up. And then I think at one stage we were down to 13. So probably wasn't how we wanted to finish the game, but we'll take the positives from the first half.
And I mean, so Grenoble now sitting, what, 16 points clear at the top. We've spoken to a few guests this season, and generally speaking, they said that the quality and the competitiveness at Pro Day there is higher than I think it has been in the past. So could you have imagined it going quite so well thus far? Obviously not tempting fate,
Um,
but it's been a pretty serious
yeah,
serious first two
yeah.
thirds.
Yeah, no, I couldn't, to be honest. I mean, coming off the back of last season and seeing how competitive the league was then, and obviously losing quite a few players in the summer as well. You're not quite sure how the new signings are going to come in and do. And fortunately, they've been really good recruits for us. But still, I never kind of thought that we would, have hit the ground running like we did and be 16 points clear at this stage. And surely because of like how competitive the league is. I mean, we've been fortunate enough to get some really good wins on the road, and picked up bonus points at home in 8 of our 11 home games, and won 11 of them. So, I think from an outsider, you obviously look at Grenoble as the favourites to go up. But for me, it's just a case of getting into the top two, and then it becomes a real kind of almost 50-50. I mean, you can see how fickle the games are last year when we beat Provence in the semi, probably a slight underdogs, and then go into the finals probably favourites and lose that. So, I mean, we'll take nothing for granted, and we know we're nowhere near the finish line yet, but it is nice to obviously be a few points clear at this stage. Um, but like I said, we can't take it for granted because we know how fickle this competition and how competitive it is.
That's just taking you back to that last season. If we might as
Mm.
well start there while you're on it. Like, what's the kind of mindset going into those games? Because I guess you guys last year were kind of the form team, but had come up from quite a long way back.
Yeah.
And obviously, well, as things are going, it's probably going to be the opposite way around. But how is it going into that final, knowing that you've kind of got a shootout, but also you've got a kind of backup option? And then I guess following on from that, how is it going into the second week when you've just lost
Yeah.
and you're supposedly playing an even better team in the next week?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question because obviously it was the first for me as well. I mean, like, I've never had the magnitude of, I'd say, these games, on my plate, really. I mean, coming from the Ospreys where we made maybe, we made a semi-final, a quarter-final here and there. But even then, it was never like to get promoted. So even if we'd have won the competition, you're not getting promoted, or like there's no chance of relegation. So it was completely new for me, and it's something I really enjoyed. However, I mean, it makes the pressure enormous, and the mindset. I mean, obviously, the mind can do funny things. For me, was kind of stayed relaxed for the first game, for the final, because I mean, with the circumstances last year, I mean, people weren't expecting us to kind of get anywhere near it really with about 15 games to go. I mean, we were miles off with the deductions we'd had and the unrest that was kind of laying around the club with some of the things that had gone on. So then when we got to fourth place, I think it was fourth where we finished, um, for me, it was like, well, it's just like a free shot this year. We haven't really, like the new president's come in, he hasn't prepared to go up. Like there's no, expectation on us. So like go to Provence and win, but you expend a lot of energy in that semi-final doing that. And I almost think that we'd kind of blown out by the time we got to the final. And I think that was kind of evident in our performance where we dropped the ball 13 times and Van only dropped it twice. There's the amount I could mention about that game. We dropped the ball over the line, get held up over the line. But it is what it is. Then going back to your question on how does it for the following week, everyone's down. Everyone's kind of, in the dumps, depressed almost for the next 2 or 3 days, because I mean the ultimate goal is over here, and I think the French take it very kind of seriously as they want to be the champions of France, in Pro de Deux. So I mean the best way to go up is to obviously do it that way. And I haven't had conversations after with some of the Frenchies, and like, yeah, it's just so difficult after we weren't the champions to go into the following week. But I was almost like, well, let's bed that game now and let's get on with what's to come. And I mean, we should have beaten Montpellier again when you look back at the game, but we weren't obviously clinical enough, and our real discipline cost us. Having said that, I think as difficult as it was, I think it may have been a blessing in disguise. In terms of allowing us to recruit the players we have and giving us a year to kind of gel together and to prepare to go to the top 14, which is obviously what we've spoken about this year, in a way in which, everyone's ready. Whereas I think if we went up to the top 14 for this season, we may have been caught a little bit, cold-blooded, a little bit off guard. We would have been signing players probably left, right, and centre, as Van did, and they're not doing bad, are they? But I mean, it's such a difficult league. Whereas I feel we've got a very stable squad this year, and I'm confident that we're going to give it a good go to get promoted. That's obviously the first thing, and then further down the line, I mean, we'd love to obviously stay in the top 14, but acknowledging how hard that is as well is, it's a reality. But like I said, the squad we've got, if we can keep the players fit, got quite a lot of injuries right now, but we're still getting the job done. So yeah, I mean, mentally it's very different from anything I've experienced before, but the magnitude of the games just brings this feeling in your stomach, that you don't get unless maybe you play international rugby. Like, it was the last time I got that. So it's really incredible.
It's interesting you say that. You say you guys were kind of a bit defeated after that final, the Pro de Deux final, because until relatively recently, it was the top 14 side had never won that access match. It was kind of, I think it's only been Montpellier last year, and I think one Perpignan the year before that. So it's kind of always it feels like it's weird that both teams are then down in the dumps, because Montpellier were just in a complete spiral like last year. How was it kind of coming? Because obviously they had some serious names, like, well, they still do, and whoever ends up in that access match game this year is probably going to have some serious names. What's it like, kind of like eyeing up the opposition and knowing that this could be a completely different beast, or like these guys are going to be a different caliber?
Yeah, I think the best way to like describe it would be how the first kind of maybe 15 minutes went of the access game, when we were just all a little bit kind of like taken back. We go 14 nil down straight away, like, and then it's almost like, oh well, game over, you know. But then once you realise that, you know, I mean, I don't think there's a massive gap in maybe the levels. There probably is in some aspects of it, some aspects of the game, maybe your line out, scrum, etc. But when you chuck, you know, a Pro Two team at home in front of 20,000 people against the likes of Montpellier, who came down with like World Cup winners and all sorts of internationals. I mean, you know, we really shook them up. You know, toward the end of the first half, we shook them up. We got ahead at half time. We came out and we missed an opportunity to score about 5 minutes into the second half. And I truly believe if we'd have scored there, I think they would have just kind of capitulated. And I've played against obviously some of the big names in the URC and at the international level. But in France, it's a little bit different when home advantage comes into play because it makes such a difference. And I do believe that this year, regardless of who obviously goes up and hopefully it'll be Grenoble, I do think the two teams will. I don't know who's going to be against. So it's a big statement to make, but I do think that the two teams from Pro D2 will go up this year.
And who have you mentioned, and we sort of I think forgotten a little bit because of how good a season it's been, but did lose some big names last year. Some young guys as well, Massa and Montaigne and guys like that. Who of the folks who have come in have really made the sort of impact and hit the ground running?
Yeah, so Hanru Sergal, so a South African number 8. He's an incredible player, powerful. I mean, just, you know, doesn't set a foot wrong, gets us over the gain line. So that's one of our non-GIF players. Another one was Johannes Jonker. So we signed him from Bath, tight head. He's picked up an injury at the start of the year, but now he's back fit. And I mean, his scrummaging is great. He's great around the park. He's got that physicality. And then backs, there's going to be, he likes Gershwin Mouton. So Namibian. Scored 2 tries on the weekend. He's been a real revelation for us. Explosive player. Again, just like oozes class, you know, like doesn't really set a foot wrong, knows the game inside out, like just does. He can play 13, he can play winger, he can play 15. I think his best position is probably winger, just because of how elusive he is out on them channels. But again, being a great recruit for us. And then probably going to a bit more of like the boys who are still here is like, obviously we'd say we probably had a young squad last year. Now they're a year older. I think they've matured quite a bit with what they've been through. Because I know Rob was just saying about it's been 2 years where there's been 2 losses. Well, they both happen to be against Grenoble, the 2 access games.
Yeah.
So, you know, the players have experienced a lot. They've been through a lot. And I think they couldn't be more hungry to get it over the line this time round. You know, I mean, it's just for it to happen once is painful. And then but I only had it once. It was the second time for them. And I can feel how painful it is after one time. And I don't want to go through that again. So the hunger that is obviously being shown this year is probably part and parcel of some of the kind of things that have gone on in the past with the access games. But then I also think that the players have learned from that and they're a lot more experienced, which is beneficial for Grenoble as a club.
Feels like to me like you guys have got just a big squad. I don't know how it compares or how you feel like compared to last year. It feels like you've just got a massive squad and like a load of the guys are just really interchangeable. Like, you know, you've got a few key players that are kind of stand out, but a lot of positions, it's kind of different names each week and the performance doesn't seem to drop. It's kind of an amazing cohesion that you guys seem to have. Is there kind of, have you noticed a kind of general increase across the squad from everyone?
Yeah, no, I think definitely so. I think we've got a couple, so we've definitely got more non-GIFs this year than we did last year. Or the other ones, But I think the most healthy thing we've got in our relationships, the most healthy thing we've got in our squad right now is the fact that, like you said, when one player drops out or is kind of rested, the guy that's stepping in is generally just doing a good or better job. So I mean, the competitiveness that we've got amongst ourselves, and like everyone's wanting to get back from injuries to get playing because everyone can see how well the team is doing. So you've got this winning environment going around that if you step into a game, you have to deliver, or you're going to be pulled straight out. And I think that's what makes teams successful. Unfortunately, we've got that this year, and we've been, that's not to say we haven't been struck with like injury crises, and like, we've got one this weekend actually, in the hooker position, because two of our hookers are injured, but they're not injured for 3 months, so we can't bring a medical joker in. And then our other hooker who got a yellow card, it was his third yellow card in 3 games, so he's banned. So we haven't got a hooker to play this weekend, which is crazy, really. So one of our loose heads is going to be probably starting, and he's just picked up throwing in the ball into the lineup over the last couple of weeks. And then our tight head, one of our tight heads, he plays for Portugal, etc., but he's covering. And well, I mean, I've seen people throwing the ball better than him. It's like there's obviously going to be some complications for us.
Oh wow!
But again, I don't think we're not down and out. Like as a team, we know exactly what we got to do still, and we still got a strong enough squad, even if there are changes this week, to get the job done. Because I think teams are fearing us a bit more now, and I think you can see that in some of the team selections that are getting sent down to the Stade des Alps. It's almost like they're sending down the bomb squads because they just know it's just not an unwinnable game, which is great, but also can be quite frustrating as well because you do want to be playing against the best teams.
Yeah, Bezier were pretty weak on Friday, weren't they? There was just no names in that one.
Yeah.
Sam, we can't get you on without. There's been plenty of sort of chat, I'd say, for a while, given your performances at Grenoble, and a few bits going on, obviously, at home with Wales. Matt Sherratt, I believe, would have been your backs coach at Ospreys. Is that correct?
Yeah. He coached me I was with Jockey for a year. Yeah.
Okay.
For a year.
You've got to ask, has he been on the blower at all?
Well, so I had a really good relationship with Jockey actually, and I really liked his style of coaching. He came in, he was like a breath of fresh air to the environment, and he was very clear with his game plan, which I really liked, and his attacking philosophy was also great. As I think we could probably see from Cardiff's performances and Wales's last one. I texted him after he got the job, and he just kind of thanked me and just said, "Oh, it wasn't for a long time. It was he's just doing a short term kind of role." Which I think is the wise thing to do for where he's at in his coaching career. He's risen pretty quickly, so I think he's a very knowledgeable man in my opinion, and I think he doesn't want to take one of the biggest jobs we could say one of the biggest jobs in world rugby really, especially with where everything's are there now, and then get taken off the pedestal too early, because I think he's doing a great job at Cardiff, and he obviously signed a long-term deal there. No, he hasn't been on the blower asking me to go back. I think he took his Cardiff boys, the Jared and Anscombe, back, didn't he? Which they did a great job coming back into difficult circumstances. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see who does come in full time and what their beliefs are, and what their thoughts are moving forward with everything relating to Welsh rugby and cap rules, and just everything, philosophies. It's going to be really interesting because it's not an easy job, but it is a job that's full of potential, in my opinion. Wales is a proud rugby nation, and they shouldn't be in the position they're in now, which is quite it's quite disheartening. And all the French boys are asking me, well, why aren't you in the Wales squad? Like, you should be there. I'm like, I'm saying I'm not allowed, but I'm not. I think I am allowed really because you know I think the rule around whether you get an offer from a region or a fair one is related to the cap rule. So I mean, there's an argument there to say, well, I haven't never got a fair offer, and this contract I just signed, there was, I mean, a couple of Welsh clubs were trying to talk to me, but I didn't even entertain it, so there was no offers. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see moving forward. But like, my goal is just to get into the top league with this Grenoble team, and I've really enjoyed making the step over into France because it's just been completely different, but completely kind of suited to me.
Do you feel like there's been more attention on you personally in terms of like, I don't know, I see like you're all over our social media because we're like our algorithm is like pro day duh. But
Yeah,
like, do you feel like you're getting more attention than you almost did in your last few years at the Dragons?
yeah, 100%. And I think that's obviously, I found it quite funny kind of last year. I mean, because it was all good press, but it's like, well, I'm not doing million things to what I was doing at the Dragons. I'm just working in probably, in terms of mentality. So I'm surrounded by a winning team. That's enabling me to kind of like maybe showcase my performance a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting to come across the pond and then see that even back in Wales, I'm almost getting more press, and like to see people getting pissed off. It was quite funny. Like, oh, why are we talking about him again? And he's left. Blah 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 blah. He's playing in the second division, and I mean the best thing about that comp is if you drop some of the Welsh regions, I think, into this comp, you'd be surprised at how difficult they would find it. Because it's not an easy competition. But anyway, yeah, it is interesting to see sometimes when the press goes a bit crazier when you actually leave the country. But I suppose that it is what it is.
And what was the thinking then when you with that? How did your move to Grenoble come about? Was it you went searching? A
Um,
lot of people have got some really wacky stories. They're amazing, like what people come up with, how they
yeah,
signed for French clubs.
yeah. I suppose it was be an interesting one because I think my first contact with a French team was through Grenoble, through kicking coach at the Dragons, who was doing a bit of work. He now works with Argentina, I think, full time, kicking consultant. Alan Kingsley, he was a great guy. And he kind of was doing some kicking, like he was doing a couple of clubs, but he happened to be doing Biarritz. And then the Biarritz coach went to Grenoble, and then was asking about me and my salary expectations, etc. So I think that was where the link was made. So like through my kicking coach at the Dragons, who, like I said, great guy. But yeah, I mean, obviously the markets were an absolute nightmare, and there was an opportunity to go to Cardiff, and I was like, well, do I stay in Wales, stay put in the same house, or do I get out of my comfort zone, explore something new, a new culture, new league? And I was like, I just got to try it, and I'm so glad I did, and I think looking back, if I was in the Cardiff squad, I think in my head, or maybe I would have gone to the Wales squad, which was a possibility if I was playing back there. But still, the experiences I've experienced so far, I wouldn't take them away, for the world. And hopefully, what's to come is good. And I'll do everything in my power to make that the case. But yeah, I'm incredibly happy that I did sign to France and sign where I signed in Grenoble. And that's why I've extended for 3 years. So
Amazing. Yeah, and it's been, I mean, from afar, it's been awesome to watch. So yeah, long may it continue, and long may those 3 years
yeah,
hopefully be in the top 14. Sam, before
yeah,
we go, we always ask our guests, come
yeah.
on, recommendations for their town, their grounds. So well, we have been to Grenoble for a night, but
I'm wearing my
Yeah.
Grenoble jumper.
Ah, nice, nice, nice.
if
Representing.
if we were
Love
to
to see
come
it.
back out, where would you point us in the direction?
Okay.
And is there anywhere we can find your gin behind the bar as well?
Yeah. So those are the bars I was just going to push you towards, actually. But So, I mean, there's obviously, as you spend more time here, you find out the places. I mean, Grenoble's quite good for nightlife, and I suppose France is as a whole. A couple of places where we would go after a good win, more so last year. I think my wife, so my wife is pregnant, so I haven't been. Yeah, thank you. So Le 365, so Le 365 is a good bar which serves my gin. So obviously, any bar that serves my gin's a good bar. Le Champollion, which is another great bar in the Grenoble area. And then, I mean, if you want to go a bit further outside, Bar, sorry, if you pronounce it right. And then ski resort, Les Des Setlo, which does all my cocktails. The gin is in all of the cocktails, so makes for a great cocktail. But if you're going to go central, Le Champollion and Le 365.
I think I remember seeing that.
Certainly bear it in mind. Sam, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. We're about to hit our deadline. Could have spoken for hours, but best of luck for the rest of the year. We'll be keeping an eye out on how Grenoble get on. And thanks again. Thanks for being on the pod.
No worries. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time, and I'll catch up with you guys soon.
Cheers, mate. Take it easy.